Okay. Bienvenue, welcome. Thank you everyone for coming to the 85th event of Disrupting Disruptions, the feminist and accessible publishing, communications, and technology speaker and workshop series. I'm Dr. Alex Ketchum, and I'm a professor of feminist and social justice studies at McGill and the organizer of this series. The Feminist and Accessible Publishing, Communications, and Tech Speaker and Workshop Series seeks to bring together scholars, creators, and people in industry working at the intersections of digital humanities, computer science, feminist studies, disability studies, communication studies, LGBTQ studies, history, and critical race theory. I'm so excited to welcome you all. This is our first event of the winter semester. Woohoo! Thanks for being here. On January 9th, Dr. Aaron Lee Rosenberg will be speaking about his year offline, and that's a hybrid lunchtime event. On January 16th, Dr. Margaret Galvin will be speaking on Invisible Archives, Queer and Feminist Visual Culture in the 1980s at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's a virtual event. But you can find our full schedule as well as video recordings of our past events at disruptingdisruptions.com. So that's the redirect URL, disruptingdisruptions.com. The other URL is way too long to remember. You can also find our list of sponsors, including Shirk, Milieu, Rekef, and more. For folks who are joining us via Zoom, we also have a Q&A option available. So throughout the event, you may type your questions in the question and answer box, and there will be some time during the second part of the event for Alisha B. Wormsley to answer them. We can't guarantee that every question will be answered, but we are grateful for the discussion that you generate. Thank you to our captioner today, Fenella. As we welcome you into our homes or offices through Zoom and you welcome us into yours, let us be mindful of space and place. As many of you know, past series speakers Suzanne Kite and Jess McLean have pointed to the physical and material impacts of the digital world. While many of the events this semester are virtual or hybrid, everything that we do is tied to the land and the space that we are on. We must always be mindful of the lands that the servers enabling our virtual events are on. Furthermore, as the series seeks to draw attention to power relations that have been invisibilized, it is important to acknowledge Canada's long colonial history and current political practices. The series is affiliated with the Institute for Gender, Sexuality, and Feminist Studies of McGill University. McGill is located in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, on unceded Kanien'kehá:ka territory. Furthermore, the ongoing organizing efforts by Indigenous communities, water protectors, and people involved in land back movements make clear the ever-present and ongoing colonial violence in Canada. Interwoven with this history of colonization is one of enslavement and racism. This university's namesake, James McGill, enslaved Black and Indigenous peoples. It was in part from the money he acquired through these violent acts that McGill University was founded. These histories are here with us in this space and inform the conversations we have today. I encourage you to learn more about the lands that you are on. Nativeland.ca is a fantastic resource for beginning. Now for today's event. Alisha B. Wormsley is an interdisciplinary artist and cultural producer. Wormsley's work is dedicated to the expansion and creation of time and space and the rematriation of Black Indigenous Matriarch. Alisha is a mother and founder of Sibyls Shrine, an arts collective and residency program for Black artists who mother, and her project There Are Black People in the Future both focus on the redistribution of resources and reimagination of Black futures. Wormsley is a 2022 Guggenheim Fellow, 2023 Creative Time Commission Public Artist with Suzanne Kite, and 2023 Anonymous Was a Woman, a New York Foundation for the Arts Environmental Art Grants recipient, and Sundance Interdisciplinary Grantee. In fall 2024, she begins her appointment as Assistant Professor of Art in the area of social practice at Carnegie Mellon University. Please join me in welcoming Alisha B. Wormsley. Thank you.
Hey. Okay. Just thank you for welcoming me and inviting me to be here. It's very exciting to be the 85th in a long line of amazing programming. I'm gonna set up my screen to share, and I'm gonna get started. So I'm going to start by saying greetings. I am the daughter of June Alisha, the granddaughter of Lucille Nancy and Maddie Bell, the great-granddaughter and great-great-granddaughter of Mimi, Dorothy, Plina, Sally, Mama Nancy, Sally Rose, Sweetie, Ruth, and those known and unknown guides, healers, and protectors. I come to you with a happy heart. I am going to start I always start with a visual meditation. This work is a collaboration with Amara T. Smith, who is a choreographer and the founder of House Full of Black Women in Oakland, California. Also collaborated with Ellen Sebastian Chang. They both founded this project that addressed the displacement of Black and Brown people in Oakland, California, because of the cost of living, and also sex trafficking with Black women. And so this was their final episode. They did a series of productions, rituals, and marches, and different performances. And this was their final episode in this last year that they asked me to come and film and create a film about. So I'm going to start with this. It is, you know, a time for you to relax and settle into sort of the vibe of what this talk will be. Okay. So I want to say the names of everyone who was in that video: Toby Melora Corial, Chris Evans, Shelly Davis Roberts, Amara T. Smith, Keisha Turner, and Rayla White Spraggins. There is a, probably has always been, but I haven't always been alive, a really strong movement of Black and Brown women, like really addressing rematriation, addressing stewardship of land, addressing the resurgence of like a great cosmic mother, right? And so in that, while we're, you can feel all the transitions that are happening in this world, and so I feel, for my own practice, that is like kind of my dedication to my practice is making the world a place where people can live. That's not my line, that's the Black Panthers in a letter from 1972. So I have a lot of influences, and Zora Neale Hurston is a huge one. I have a master's in anthropology, and I didn't go to art school until much, much later. And I was also like, I got into anthropology because I was really into science fiction. When we think about like history, like the way I was taught as a Black person in America, I was taught to always question what was given to me, question history, question science, question all these things, because they're rooted in something that, has exploited this earth and the people of this earth. And so I was very skeptical of anthropology, and I think that's why I did it, like just to stir some things up. But Zora Neale Hurston also really pushed me there, and she did a series of studies. I read this book maybe when I was 19, and she did a series of studies in the rural South and then later in the Caribbean, and she went to sacred spaces where Black people were, and like house churches, spaces for ceremony and ritual. And she started recording when they would speak in tongues, right? Like when you speak in tongues, right, the spirit falls on you and you are speaking a language that is unknown to you, right? And she recorded those, and she found traces of African dialects in those recordings. So you have to imagine, right, like 300 years taken away from Africa, that this language would be in your DNA, that it could be accessed in our consciousness is incredible. It's like science fiction, right? It's like superhero stuff. So, like that sort of was like blew my mind, and it also like disrupted time for me. Like it was no longer linear. And so it kind of like pushed me to, I had the privilege of like traveling a lot. I painted murals in college and photographed things, and I got to travel because of that. And everywhere I went, if it was Cuba or South America or North Africa or Central Africa, West Africa, there was like these things that reminded me of my grandmothers. And so I started to see these overlays, right? Like these overlays in time, and this cross of indigeneity and Blackness and all of those things. And then, I was very much raised by a Black feminist woman. And so the Combahee River Collective also, just if my practice is dedicated to this kind of rematriation, then it's really a balance that I'm talking about, right? Like it's not like one person has more control or power over the other. That's not like really what matriarchy involves, but it's really thinking about like if this quote, like if Black women were free, it would mean that everyone else would be free, right? Since our freedom would necessitate the destruction of all systems of oppression. So, these are the things. And then, back to science fiction, back to this like sort of fantasy thing that really, I didn't know Afrofuturism is a pretty new term. And I remember a friend of mine, Ingrid LaFleur, who's brilliant Afrofuturist from Detroit, and goes back and forth between South Africa and Detroit. And she told me about this group called Drexcia. And they were from Detroit, and they're a 90s American electronic music duo, and James Marcel Stinson and Gerald Donald. And so they created this concept of their group, right? Of their music. And the concept is that they were from this underwater Atlantis, right? That was founded by the pregnant women who were thrown off of slave ships. So they took this, and again, it's like kind of like this sort of, right, expansion of like Zora Neale Hurston's study of these dialects that we could tap into our consciousness and connect to our ancestors and their language, over hundreds of years, that also that something that's so awful and so horrible could be transformed into this like power, into like a symbol of power, and not power in a means of control, but just like a power of liberation, of autonomy, of like being able to survive. And so I was really like very much influenced by this work as well. And so I started collecting all of these things, like wherever I was. I mentioned before about being seeing these like overlays of Black and indigeneity, and especially matriarchal overlays around. And so I started collecting these things. And at some point I realized like I had all of this, I collected these like rituals and ceremonies and things and photographs, and then I'm making work also. I'm making video work. Like this work here with, this is Jasmine Hearn, and they are a movement artist, originally from Houston, Texas. Then we met in Pittsburgh, where I live, and they kind of are nomadic right now, doing their work. And we worked together in this neighborhood that I lived when I was a child. It's called Homewood. It's one of the larger, more historic Black neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. And when I left Pittsburgh when I was a senior in high school to go to college, and I didn't come back for 15 years. And when I came back, this neighborhood, the layout was completely different. There are houses, buildings, businesses missing, right? After 2 war on drugs, this like sort of attack on Black neighborhoods, which is global. I want to say, like United States, but it's global. I started like walking. I was like taking all of these walks. I had a residency where I had a studio in a school, a middle high school in this neighborhood. And so I would, take walks, and I'd see all these places that were gone and had disappeared. And I was thinking about like the history of this neighborhood, where the first Black opera in America is from Homewood, the National Negro Opera Theater. Helen Faison is from Homewood, and she radicalized elementary education. There are all these like all this legacy here, and to see this neighborhood be in this state, was really hard for me. And so I started thinking about like the overlaps of time, and I worked with Jasmine on thinking about this. I started working on this experimental series of futurist films, Afrofuturist, right? Sci-fi films. And so I thought like Jasmine could be time, and like every time she would do these movements that were kind of connected to like what it is to have spirit fall on you and speak in tongues. Like that would be like our portal to travel through time. And so I made this film. Let's see if it plays. It's a little loud, I'm sorry. Okay. And so, I made this with, I started making these little snippets, kind of working with the community and like different people and in different places where I remembered things, right? Like this is about my memory and the overlaps and the time travel through my existence, me as a person who grew up in this place and then moved on. And I started to make more of these little snippet videos and collected things and made things. And then maybe like 5 years later, I realized that I had this archive I had been collecting for since I was in college. My first trip, I remember I went to Cuba for a mural conference in 2000. And like I would see women like keeping sheets white, like who can keep sheets white besides my grandmothers and all these women, like I'm seeing these altars at the doorways of houses that, these people who are Christian, who have these like African ancestor altars like in their doorways. They don't even know that they're African. I didn't even know they were African until I went to Africa, like this like way of like and the style and all these things. I'm seeing these things, I'm collecting all this, and I'm making videos about it and photographs and collages and all of this. And then I realized that I had this archive of this sort of Black matriarchal diaspora. And so from the archive, I started making work from the archive. So it's kind of like this meta sci-fi, time traveling thing. And so I made the first film I made from the archive was called Children of Nan Mothership. So I decided to call the archive the Children of Nan Archive. And Nan is the most used syllable for mother in African dialects. So that's why I call it Children of Nan. And so I made this film called Mothership. And so I'm going to show you just like some clips from it. And this is the last long thing I'm going to show you.
I've given all of you black tourmaline, which is a crystal which protects you from negative energy. It is also representing the black body.
a war happening.
They were amazing. I noticed they were aware of us watching them. They were showing us something.
You're facing a big, wide ocean.
Okay, so that's the end. So all of this footage was taken in Homewood, and except for the one scene by the ocean. There's no ocean in Pittsburgh. It's in West Africa, Cape Coast, Ghana. So it was like kind of the whole migration, right? And so, and a lot of these places were the places I was speaking about. This was a home of someone who Miss Nancy, who took care of the neighborhood, all the kids in the neighborhood. She was like babysitter. This house was always beautiful, clean. She was always beautiful, clean. And now her house is completely fallen apart. She passed away maybe 10 years, 15 years before I shot this. And so it was just like kind of this, so I had my god sister and collaborator, Jamila Reagan, dress. Like I remember seeing her in this photograph when I was a kid, and I remember thinking about how beautiful she was. So I found, Jamila and I found a dress very similar and did this performance, this ritual, this ceremony in honor of her, but also like crossing time, collapsing time. These are all spaces. A lot of this work was from another project I did. This is an archive, a project I did called People Are the Light, where I did a series of community engagements over a month period, with 12 collaborators, 12 artists, Black women who have connections to Homewood. This is the National Negro Opera House. You can see it a little better in the beginning, I think. Is that right? Wasn't there like a clip where you could see the whole house? Maybe not. But now the house is falling apart, similarly to, this is Anquinique Kinzel, who is an opera singer that lives in Pittsburgh. So this is sort of like how I've created work. And then, you know, from this archive, I also create installations, you know, so you can kind of see how I go from video, from this archive into like an exhibition space, typically with using projection, and ephemera, materials, things. With some work, just like taking certain aspects of the video work, projection, creating these spaces where I feel like I'm collapsing time. Can see. Then I started printing, making this wallpaper. Like my objective was to cover as much space of a room with Black women as possible. This is one aspect, creating these altars, right? Like I'm trying to create a world. I'm trying to make these women sort of these like spiritual, like Orishas in a sense, if you, like present day, modern day Orishas, you know, and then I had the wallpaper, also like played around with these are hair dryer seats, like salon chairs with hair dryers, and I changed the fabricated these pyramids instead of the dryers. They're like triangle pyramids, Black pyramids, and when you close them, there's a video inside and then there's a video outside, and so it's like this sort of chamber of this information. And then I started taking the wallpaper, right? And during the pandemic, I was working on this survival guide film. I had got all this funding to start this second sort of archive Children of Nam film. I'm calling survival guide. I'm working on it now. And then the pandemic happened, right? So I couldn't film, I couldn't shoot. So I like needed something to do, and I had this wallpaper after these shows. You know, this wallpaper just gets rolled up and put in my studio. And so I started playing around with the wallpaper as textiles, and I've thought a lot about sort of like this technology, like what technology really is. I started, you know, like you heard that Suzanne Kite is a collaborator of mine, and she's very much into AI and thinking about AI through Indigenous protocol and ethical AI, ethics around this. And so I'm thinking about these things too. I'm learning. Stephanie Dinkins also is like a teacher, you know, in a way, inspiration. I'm a fan. And just the way that thinking about like the two of them are thinking about like these AI elders, of like what like the sort of origins of technology and how often technology is experimented and modeled after Black women, like you know, so that in itself, thinking about Black women as like this advanced technology, right? And then what is like what we call ancient technology, which would be like quilting, right? Weaving, creating bowls, basket weaving, those sorts of things that we think we call, you know, which we like put in a box as craft, but is actually survival. It's actually an advanced system. I mean, weaving is how they made circuitry. All these things are, you know, together. So I started thinking about that, and I started a body of work where I kind of transform these images into quilts. I got a residency at the Pittsburgh Glass Center, and so I started making these sort of altars, stained glass altars. And then also I started weaving, and I would weave with like wires and motherboards, and I'm thinking about this advanced technology. So you can see some close-ups of the quilts, these panels. And I'm using fabric that I got in West Africa. Here are some of the weavings that I made that have these like motherboards, using these quotes actually from Mother Catherine, who Zora Hurston followed and studied, and a lot of her work is also in that book, Sanctified Church. And then making these sort of altars, right? Like the sacred, a fetish. And kind of tying these three objects together as these like future methods of sharing survival strategies, which is going to be like, so it's like very meta. I'm using these objects in this film that I'm working on as like keys to survival. Another project that I did that started in Homewood is There Are Black People in the Future. And so it actually started with the kids. I told you I had a residency in Homewood where I had a studio in the school. I like lived in New York for 10 years and I moved back to Pittsburgh for a residency with the Andy Warhol Museum. And I thought I was just going to be there for a year, and it's like 15 years later. But I had the studio in the school and I was working on these experimental films with Jasmine that I showed you. And my students, I showed them these films and they were like, oh yeah, Walking Dead. I want to make zombie films because Walking Dead was big then. And so we'd walk around, in these spaces that you saw Jasmine in, and we're just like seeing this, and the kids are like, oh, this would be perfect. I'm going to go back. This would be perfect place for our zombie film because it looks like an apocalypse, right? So here we are again, coming back to this idea of resources, of racist infrastructure, of all of these issues and problems about of like lack of equity, right? So talking about that with the students, and then I'm showing them all these sci-fi films, and they're like, there's no Black people in these sci-fi films, and so I'm starting to think like, what, like I'm getting angry. People are dying. Black people are, we're seeing more and more violence against Black people from the police, from through survival and crime, and it's just like, I just was like ranting about it after like being really like sad and frustrated with the kids, and I'm ranting about it with my partner, and I was like, what, there are Black people in the future. And then I started this project before the billboard. So then I was collecting objects. I just started writing There Are Black People in the Future on everything I saw, and we'd walk around making zombie films with the kids, and I would just pick up objects on the ground and like things, and then I would take them back to my studio and I would print There Are Black People in the Future on them. And then I started encasing some of those objects in resin and experimenting with that. And I was like making these artifacts, right? Like for like of this like future place, right? Like, and I also was doing it like in a sense as a ritual, as a spell, right? Like if I print it on these objects, then it will happen. And so that is, that turned into this billboard. This is not the billboard from Pittsburgh. Let me actually, that's like a different lecture, of course, but the original billboard was in Pittsburgh, and it was taken down because developers, this is another historically Black neighborhood in Pittsburgh that had been, instead of neglected, has been completely gentrified and looks extremely different. And I put this billboard on top of a building of a place called the Shadow Lounge that was outpriced in this neighborhood. It was like basically this hip hop club, jazz club that was started by a friend of mine, Justin Strong, and they had this, they were outpriced and displaced by this gentrification, right? And so the billboard on top, the developers in the neighborhood were threatened by it and took the billboard down, saying there was a clause in the lease that something political could be removed. Now, this is a project, it was a project called The Last Billboard by my colleague, John Rubin, and he had artists put text on there that was about the war in Iraq, that was about the Bush administration, but me saying a sentence that there are Black people in the future was the political thing that got taken down. So that's something to really consider. And, because it got taken down, I got to, the Heinz Endowments gave me a large grant to work through that with the community. The community protested, all of these things happened, and we got to have this sort of artwork in residency where I got to give out 11 mini grants to artists and activists and mothers in Pittsburgh. And it kind of like pushed me to start Sibyls Shrine, which I will talk about now, but There Are Black People in the Future has traveled all over the country and the world. And it also has become like a tag, like this here. It's like, there are Black trans people in the future. Like, people just like tag me on Instagram and I see these things, and it makes me unbelievably happy. But it's also been, I've been able to leverage this, like when institutions want to use the billboard or have the billboard, or then I'm like, well, what are you going to do for Black futures? And so been able to like move a lot of resources to Black artists in different communities, Black and Indigenous artists. This, the top right image is a commission. The Goethe Institute in St. Louis commissioned 10 Black and Indigenous artists to design this, in connection to the text, There Are Black People in the Future. It's been in Qatar, it's Oakland Museum. I've done research projects around Black neighborhoods in different areas. So it's really like had this life, and it also kind of pushed my collaboration with Suzanne Kite, where we started this project in Montreal, doing with the Goethe Institute there, working, we set up a workshop where we invited, I think, 15 Black and Indigenous artists futurists to dream with us. And so now we're doing a much larger dream focused project for Creative Time in New York that will come out next year. So I'm gonna end with Sibyls Shrine. So after I did the There Are Black People in the Future residency program, the first one in Pittsburgh, where I got to give these mini grants and these resources, and it was like a residency. 4 of the people who got grants were Black mothers, and they did their work around like not being able to be, to have all the struggles of being a Black artist who mothers. And also then I connected it to my own experience. When I had my child, I had already had a career in art, and my main thing was going to residencies and doing projects around the world. That's how I got commissions to do these community engagements and social practice and all of these things. And when I had my child, basically I had 3 residencies lined up for the next 2 years, and they all were like, oh, I guess you're not coming. So I was like, oh, I'm not, and like, I kind of had to figure all these things out. And then I just, your eyes open, you don't know until you know, right? And so then I'm like seeing just like how much like everything else that is connected to capitalism, how, much art is really cancels out parents, especially heavy parents, right? There's always a heavy, and it's typically mothers, right? And not talking about gender, but I'm talking about like the act of mothering. And so I decided to really because There Are Black People in the Future residency was so successful, I leveraged that to start a residency, and I call it Sibyls Shrine. And Sibyls are an ancient order of priestesses for the goddess Mami Wata, who's one of the original cosmic mothers, and they were like in charge of protection and care, and so I started this, and this is how I'll end my talk. It's like a 3-minute video. It works. Okay, is it gonna work? It's gonna work. My name's Alisha Wormsley, and Jessica, Naomi, and I are Sibyls Shrine. It's a residency program supporting Black creative mothers, women acts who identify as artists, producers, creatives, and/or activists in the greater Pittsburgh area. Due to the coronavirus epidemic, much of our work has become virtual, which has opened up possibilities for serving an even greater community of Black women. Although our program is specifically focused on uplifting Pittsburgh-based Black mothers, our network has included Black mothers from across the nation.
The network residency is intended to support Black creative mothers over 8-week sessions. In these cohorts, mamas meet weekly every Sunday at 1 o'clock. We discuss current events, how we're feeling, but also moms can talk about whatever their art is, whatever their practice is. They can share it with the group through a workshop. And so they have an opportunity to talk about whatever is important to them in their own practice. And we always compensate moms for this work.
My job as a community liaison is literally to solve my own problems. I am a working mother, but I'm also working and doing my mothering and trying to figure out the best rhythm to be most effective in both of those roles. So as I communicate with the community and speak with them and work with them, my interest is to help figure out how these mothers, these working mothers, can be most effective in all of their roles.
We'll be supporting 3 local Pittsburgh creative Black mothers in their work, in their sustainability, in their surviving to thriving. Each of them have a 12-week specialized programming. The moms will be mentored by our visiting artist that will also be in and out of Pittsburgh, also making work, also mentoring the home moms and the network, all the Sibyls, really, we're all gonna benefit from this.
I just wanted to say how appreciative I am to be part of Pittsburgh's first Black Mothers Residency. To me, it's really an example of best practices of self-determination for us. And by design, I really feel that it is an intentional opportunity for Black female artists that are mothers to be supported in ways that are typically not acknowledged. This is a bold action to honor Black mothers with such a generous gift, and I'm very thankful for that.
This opportunity is really once in a lifetime. I never thought that I would have the opportunity to be in a space that allows me to be all of the identities that represent me, including a Black woman, a mother, a cultural worker, an artist and maker in Sibyls Shrine. Not only gives us space to be all of those things together, but is, offering resources and support to be all of those things together.
I love Sibyls Shrine. I love the women. I love how we took care of each other and nourished each other. And so, if we could build from there, channel funds to create more stability for these Black women, and then they'll create more stability for other Black women, and we keep it going in that way. Okay. Also too, we've been Sibyls Shrine. That was, video from our first round. Since then we have had exhibitions and residencies. We've had partnering residencies with Atlantic Center for the Arts in Florida, with a bunch of places, and Black School in New Orleans, and all these different places. And we've been able to grow and offer more support. We've also kind of expanded the way that we speak our language. We're not, we definitely really thought about matriarchy beyond terms of gender, what it is to mother, and, not all mothers are women, all of those things. So, we're evolving. We just finished a series of talks with Ryan Dennis, Sade McConan, An Duplan, and one more person that I should not be forgetting. Andrea Chung. So if you want to join, anyone can join. Also, anyone that fits this demographic, of course, can join. So if you know folks, tell them. They just have to sign up on the website, and that's it. That's the end of my talk.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alisha. What a great talk. And I want to encourage everyone in attendance to please write your questions in the Q&A box below so we can read them aloud so Alisha can answer them. So please write your questions. And while we're waiting for folks to write in their own questions, I have one to kind of get us started. So with discussions of the future and a lot of discussions around how your work relates to time, where do you see your work going for the future or in the future?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm just right. I actually sort of feel like I'm going in reverse, since I started this sort of journey in textile and glass. I really love it. And so I can see right now I'm still kind of holding on to film and thinking about how I can use these things that I'm making as surfaces to project film and all that stuff. But but I really see myself being very analog in the future, very other opposite of future, just ancient future, we'll say. That's what I think that is growing more in me, especially I remember I started doing film because I was working thinking about these installations and shipping work and all that stuff, and I'm a young poor artist, and I was I should just start doing film. That's all I have to do is bring the file and all that stuff. But then the tech is so intense, and so it's interesting. And I'm doing this work with Kite where I'm going farther into tech and AI and machine learning and all of those things. But I actually feel my spirit is really going the opposite way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, and it seems like it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive too.
Right.
And yeah. Kit, did you have a question? Not to put you on the spot, but please, folks in attendance, this is a great opportunity to ask Alisha questions, so please write them. There aren't any in the question box yet, so.
It's okay. I
Kit,
just was so thorough in my talk that.
You were extremely thorough, and it was amazing to get to see so much of your work. I really appreciate your generous sharing of all your work. Oh, Kit, you unmuted.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you. And that Alex, you stole my backup question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, of course. It's great. But it's great to hear what you're working on now and what you're looking to do in the future. It looks fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can talk a little bit just the immediate future. The project that I'm working on with Kite, that's taking up most of my time is called Cosmologies, and we're working on a very intense, thorough dream app and a day of dreaming and creating really tapping into dreaming as forms of liberation and veneration and connection and all of those things. And so so that's super exciting. And very excited about if anyone has any good books about dreaming or any inspirations, they could put that in the chat too, because I'm looking for more and more things to read.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I'm wondering too about in terms of place, you talked about being in New York and then going back to Pittsburgh, and how the residency for Sibyls was really kind of first grounded in Pittsburgh. Do you have desire to kind of move outside of kind of Turtle Island, North America, or do you want it to be really grounded within kind of this context?
Sibyls Shrine, you mean?
Sibyls Shrine and your other artistic practice.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like I have another project that I'm doing with a collaborator, Lee Harris, who's a sound artist from Houston, Texas, really brilliant. And she and I started this project, Portals. She has a project called Afram. Just thinking about opening these portals to a place of like liberation and exponential Black beings. And we travel all over the world for that, you know, like traveled around Africa and we're working on the Caribbean and sort of and Europe. We were in Europe, and so, you know, I definitely like I've spent the last, I would say, like Pittsburgh was really, it was really interesting to come back, right? Because I came back home. And then I started to realize like this archive of like all these things, like me kind of going full circle again, which I think is interesting of like, and that I'm like raising my children in the place that I was raised. And like, I never thought that was going to happen, you know, like if you had asked me in my 20s, would I live in Pittsburgh? I would have been like, absolutely not. But that's, you know, that is something. But I definitely like spend a lot, you know, travel a lot. And I feel like this work could be, you know, even Sibyls Shrine, we have people like some of our members that joined on the network when we were on Zoom. They like want to start chapters of Sibyls Shrine. We have one of our members, Olivia, wants to, you know, has been working on starting one in Detroit. And we have another member in Seattle, and like all these spaces. And we are very like transparent and open. Like any of our members can see our Google Drive of grants, how we raise money, what we, you know, like what anything they need to like start this. Like we are the only residency that focuses on Black artists who mother, and I wish that wasn't the case. So I feel, you know, like it would be nice to see that. Like even, you know, I was in Morocco last summer and I talked, you know, there were women that were like, oh, we should start this here, you know? So it was like, so I feel like a lot of the work travels, just like there are Black people in the future was in Qatar and like all of these. So even in, you know, it was in Ireland where, you know, like there's like this context or even connection of, you know, Irish movements connected to the Black Panthers and like all these, you know, so like it is like global, like everything that we're going through like is like a global sort of program that we're trying to I don't know, decode, destroy, change. Right.
Thank you. And that's so amazing about sharing all of the files and the grants and really kind of laying the seeds and groundwork for others to pick up the project. That's very inspiring. No one else has written a question in the chat, so I have another one, and I really hope, because I know the people that are in attendance, many of you, so please write something. But there's a few students in attendance, and you had talked about your transition from your anthropology work to your artistic practice. And I know a lot of times folks feel kind of hesitancy in claiming the title or the role or label of artist or creator. And I'm wondering, since some of the students in attendance might also be kind of navigating that themselves, how you've made sense of taking on that label or role.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel like that also is like capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, you know, like making these labels and like deciding, right? Like I think you know, a lot of our members, Sibyls Shrine members, they all were like, I don't call myself an artist or have a hard time doing that. Like they, you know, because they're not like living, right, like off of art or working in this way or didn't go to art school or blah, 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 all these different reasons. But, you know, you know, I kind of think that that's ridiculous. like not like how like you embody, you are who you are, and like all these things, there's so, we are complex beings and there's so many aspects to us. I'm not just an artist, like I'm all of these things. And I, and I will tell you, like, as an arts educator, that the artists who have done other things or have other fields of study make like, the most compelling and contextual work, because they're like combining things that, we wouldn't otherwise, like art is ideas, so if you have ideas, you're an artist. You can like just like say it, as all the other things that you are, you can use that. So, but yeah, I think that's the very common thing, like to be embarrassed about something that because you're not like making money from it, or like that, those things, you didn't go to school for it, like those things don't even mean anything, right? Like anyone can do those things. So
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And I really appreciate your generosity in sharing so much of your art with us and answering my questions. And no one else wrote anything else in the chat, but I learned a lot and I really love your work. So thank you so much for starting off season 6. And thank you everyone for attending. I encourage you to come to more of our events. If you're interested in discussions of futurity, we also have an event coming up later this month on deaf futurity as well. So please join us for that. So thank you, everyone. And I hope you have a great evening. Thank you to our captioner, Fenella. Thank you, Kit, for helping with the tech, and see you soon.